another special edition of Newsmakers on CHCH podcast. And in case you haven't heard the news yet, Friday is the big day as June 7th marks 70 years of broadcasting here at CHCH. And all this week, we have been celebrating here on the show. We discussed some of CHCH's classic programming. We've been lucky enough to hear from some of our popular legacy employees, a group our viewers still want to hear from today. So if you missed either of those shows, which were packed with memories and stories, go check them out wherever you found this one. Today, we are talking about some of our current team, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. And not just from Annette Hamm, who you see there, and Bubba O'Neill, who help bridge the gap between the past and present. We also have people like Randy Rath and Chantel Grillo, Duane Worth, representing those behind the camera and those relatively new to the team here at CHCH. And to help discuss it, we bring in Don Jonescu, our 70th anniversary segment producer. And before we get started, if you watch the podcast, you might have seen a little bit of a different intro there. Shout out Steve Seitz, who found this in the archival footage. I was unaware of that we had a show called Newsmakers back in the day when I pitched this show as a podcast. That was a really cool find by Steve there.
It really was. I can't stop watching it. And I said it to you before, Louie. I'll say it again. You're meant to be here.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm always glad to be here. And like I said, we started with the legacy shows. You know, we went back decades. Hilarious House of Frightenstein. We talked to some former employees, again, going back decades. Today's a little bit different. Today, we're talking about the people who still call CHCH home.
Absolutely. And some of them, like Annette Hamm, have been here since, I think, 1985 for her.
We saw that picture, and we saw that VO in the beginning there.
Wow.
Her firefighter for a day. I think somebody told me she was 21 when that was taken. So, I mean, that doing the math, she's what, 41 now? So I think that checks.
29.
Yeah. 29. Sorry,
but
Nat.
You know what? I got to say, I think she scaled the wall here, but she scaled the wall for a local charity. I wish I could remember which one. I mean, she brings it every time.
Annette shares how things started for her at CHCH and how she was even a little scared to go on air that very first time.
So when I first started, I was still in school. I was still at Mohawk, and I was what's known as the satellite monitor.
Okay, explain that.
Okay, so satellites would come in. Right now, we get news feeds in from all over just by a click of the button on our computers, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we were part of an independent satellite news, and we used to get stories in from reporters in Ottawa and in Atlantic Canada and all over in the prairies. And they would come in at a certain time of the day in the afternoon on a satellite, and they came over once. So if you didn't get it, so I would go up to VTR and have the dishes swung, and then I would run downstairs and record them. And if I didn't record them, that meant we didn't get that story in. And I would record them, and then I would watch them very carefully to get the in points and the out points and how long the story was. And then I would give it to our writer, and I would write the throws to them. This is what this story is about. So that I did that for I think about a year and a half, and I used to work weekends as well writing.
Your first day, Annette?
Yes, I do remember my very first day. Yeah. I was like so scared. I'm like, and then I went home and I'm like, oh, I wrote that. So cool.
Now, I've been lucky enough to sit beside Annette on the Morning Live desk once. I'm going to get to do it a couple more times this summer, but there's a level of confidence that Annette brings to that chair, to this station, to that role that I think we can all, whether you're on air or not, we can all kind of pick up from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a confidence. It's not a swagger. And there's a word we're going to use a couple times today, a mentor. All you have to do is talk to her and listen. And even if she's not purposely trying to educate you, listen to how she carries herself, how she talks to the guests, reads the news, interacts with Tim, and before Tim, Bob. You can pick up all the skills you need just by watching her.
Before her time on Morning Live, though, as we saw watching the intro, we saw her as a reporter, and she really is like one of those reporters that really loved being out in the field. We see Simone do it now, but was there, learning about Annette, was there a memory that stood out to her?
Yeah, and you think about the time she's been here and all the things that have happened, good and bad. This is one, and I think it's because it happened. It's a story that all of us will actually be quite familiar with.
Let's take a look.
I was a very young reporter then, and it was kind of like we had these meetings, and it was like, our assignment editor said, you know what, there's this fire. It started last night in Hagersville. It's probably out, but will you go check it out? So I went with a camera guy, one of our legendary camera guys, Bill Duncan, and we went out in the car. And we didn't have cell phones. We had these two-way radios in our cars that were in contact with the newsroom. And we got out there, and it was Hagersville tire fight. It was huge, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Bill Duncan excited about a story.
Really?
He was so excited.
That didn't happen.
He was so excited about it. But I couldn't, and we were out of radio range, so I couldn't radio into the newsroom to say, okay, this is huge. I had to go to somebody's house to say, can I use your phone? I have to call long distance at that point to Hamilton and let them know, like, this is really, really big.
Reminder that fire burned for 17 days, and I got to ask you, Don, you'll appreciate this. Is that what inspired the Springfield tire fire in The Simpsons?
Yeah, I think so. And in the early seasons, they kept revisiting it because I don't think it was ever officially put out. And when it was put out, it restarted again. It's crazy.
You got another story about Annette that stands out to you.
Well, I was talking before the clip about how professional she is and how she comports herself. But one of my all-time favorite Annette stories was we were carrying Jeopardy on CHCH, and Alex Trebek came in. And we're all a little starstruck, but Annette was starstruck, capital. And she was so excited. She'd been looking forward to it all week. She was, I don't want to say giddy, but, quite frankly, she's been giddy. And it was just so nice to see because she never reacted that way when we brought the Star Trek people in.
We love Annette. She's such a huge part of everything we do. And great to hear memories from her. And, you saw some of the clips there from the roundtable. I should mention the roundtable. We are working very hard at getting that fully posted online and producing it into some hour-long specials as well. All right, let's move on. Who do we got next?
Okay, well, this is a man who's been here since 1981. You don't see him a lot of the times, but it's Randy Rath, and I hope I didn't scoop you when I said that. But he is also a wealth of knowledge, and his stories are something.
Randy's up early, stays late to keep us all up to date on what's going on in the provincial legislature. Such an important job to have, somebody at Queen's Park to keep our politicians accountable. And like Annette, he shares a story when technology was a bit more primitive.
We used to drive our 3/4-inch tapes up or to the CN Tower, and I would go up to the top of the CN Tower and shoot the signal across the lake via a microwave. So I've been up the CN Tower probably about 800 or 900 times, just feeding tape back here. And now everything, you can edit in a laptop. I remember traveling with editing equipment, and we'd need a bus. Like we would need a bus full of stuff or at least a big van to carry our gear. And it was a tremendous mess. And it didn't really work that well either. It was, if it worked, you were lucky.
Times certainly have changed, but one thing hasn't. That's Randy.
Yeah, it's Randy, and one key thing that he practices all day, every day, and it's something we can all abide by and try to understand, whether we're in journalism or just our own life, and it's really one simple word.
What word is that?
Well, I'll let him tell you.
All right, let's hear. Randy.
Listening's the most important thing. Don't go to a scrum, don't go to a press conference with a preconceived question in your head. You could do that, sure, but listen to what's being said, because often a story will advance in ways that you couldn't imagine it advancing. So, I see that's a big problem with scrums at Queen's Park now, is that people go there, they've got their question that either their morning meeting has decided is the question of the day, or what they've decided is the question of the day, or they'll ask the same question that the guy right before him asked and expect a different answer, which is, it's madness. And no matter how many times you ask a politician the same question, they're going to give you the same answer because they have key messages and they're not going to deviate from that. They're politicians. They're trained. They know what they're doing.
That word was listening. Good advice, not just for journalists, people in relationships, in your everyday life. Listen.
And that has served him so well at the legislature. I mean, he has access that a lot of journalists don't, and certainly has a lot of respect.
Another employee who has been with us since 1981, which Randy has been, is camera operator Duane Worth.
Duane. That man holds the station's history in his head, even before he started here. He has the pictures to back it up, but he didn't want to be on the air for any of this.
He did not. He did not. Like you said, you had to really get. I've been trying to get him on the Newsmakers podcast since we've started for that reason alone. His stories are incredible. I have so much respect for what he does, and I can say nice things about him right now because he's not in the building yet, so he can't hear them. And I'm going to tell him not to watch this episode. So Duane is one of the people that, any young broadcaster that comes in here, go sit with Duane, go shoot with Duane, go follow him, see how he does, he's such a pro, and he's just a genuinely good dude at the end of the day too.
He really, really is. And the key to him is go at him. Like water on a rock or a stone. You eventually wear it down. And that's what I did every single day. And he actually stopped coming over to talk to me because he knew that he'd say, I have this great moment. And I said, this is why you got to be on the show.
Duane's story of how he got interested in the business is pretty fascinating, and it all started when his high school had some very special visitors. Let's take a look and a listen.
1979, when Ontario came to my high school, and it was actually on Global, so their big mobile pulled up. I saw them bring the cameras in. I saw them do the lighting. Fred Davis and Faye Dance were the hosts, and I went, that's pretty cool. I realized that there's a roadie crew that works in television as well. So signed up at Mohawk College, got in, second year at Mohawk. I won the CHCH award, and the deal was you get a summer job. And I showed up at CH working in the mobile crews, and I couldn't believe it. I'm working with guys that worked on Tiny Talent Time, House of Frankenstein, the Hamilton Red Wings at the old Barton Street Forum. I'm working with all those guys because we had one of the best crews in Canada. Our crews were sought after by every company. So I got on the mobile crews, and for 25 years I worked on the mobiles.
25 years on the mobile crews, now 43 years here at CHCH. Wayne Rabishaw, also one of those guys who started back in 1981, who recently retired here. Couldn't make the current employee show, but really enjoy, he's got a story for every nook and cranny of this city. No matter where you are, he can point out, oh yeah, I shot a story here, I did this, I did that. Just a plethora of knowledge, and his passion for the station. He takes such pride in his work, and he really cares about what we do as a team.
And he's not afraid to share his experience, and I don't mean that in a bossy, you have to listen to me way. He wants everybody to feel the same way, know the same tricks, know how the whole thing operates, and it's absolutely amazing.
You mentioned Ontario. Of course, that was one of the few, if not only, lotteries at the time, around that late 70s, early 80s time. Yeah,
and for those of us that remember, it was an event. It was must-see TV before must-see TV. It was $100,000, Faye Dance, and, oh goodness.
Just said it, yep.
Yeah, anyway, they were all there. everybody would gather around, watch. You get the number, you miss by one. You're like, ah. But it was really entertaining. And again, something I didn't expect to find out when I did the research was Bill Lawrence filled in a couple times. So, CHCH's DNA can be found anywhere.
Things seem to have worked out pretty well for our friend Duane Worth, of course, still here. And shortly after joining CHCH, he became a part of a pretty huge broadcast for CHCH.
We had Leafs on 11 Wednesday nights. It was unbelievable. I'm such a hockey fan. So when I was just starting off, I was just pulling cables and helping set up. Maple Leaf Gardens had no elevators. We had to carry those cameras all the way up to the gondola. And I loved my Wednesdays, going to the Leaf games and doing that. And then being in the intermission with Dave Hodge, Leafs on 11, and he's interviewing all these massive hockey stars. And I was just in awe. Gordie Howe's coming in, Wayne Gretzky. It was just unbelievable. The Leafs on 11 was spectacular. And years later, I became a replay person for the Leafs on 11. And what that got me into was doing replays, and then all of a sudden the Olympics would come around. CBC would need a large crew. I got to do replays on Olympics. I did 6 different Olympics. So the experience at CH and the mobile production crews led me to all these places around the world that I thought never in a million years I would get to.
So imagining you win this scholarship to work at a local station, second year college at a Mohawk, and we'll talk Mohawk because there's a lot of Mohawk representation here at CHCH. You're doing that, you're working here, and now your job is taking you all around the world.
It's absolutely amazing. And that's another thing that he reminds us of that sometimes we forget, caught up in the day-to-day, is that the crews at CHCH are, as he said, some of the most sought after. He wasn't and isn't the only one who's had the opportunity. Mark Brody came, and he's done a number of Olympics and big-time curling events. And Mike Robertson, who is, I think, headed to Paris in just a matter of weeks.
He is, I think he's in Dallas, he's in Boston right now. He's doing the NBA Finals, and then he's off to the Olympics. And I think Mark Brody's still doing work. I heard he floor directed a wedding recently. So he's still getting work from his time here at CHCH.
It is a lot of work being Laura's dad, though.
Next up is a man who has been heard in Hamilton since 1972, been on CHCH since 1985. It is our longtime weather and traffic maestro, Brian Wood.
Man, waking up to that voice is just a great thing. It's so calm. I've heard that it actually soothes babies and toddlers, which I'm sure his daughter would probably argue, but these are the things we hear.
The laugh. It's that laugh. Deep, especially that morning show, right? Like the laughs are such a huge part of it. You hear it, it clicks, and he was certainly laughing, telling this story to the panel. Let's take a look.
This is my very special dildo hat. Now, when I say dildo hat, it's Dildo Newfoundland hat. We used to air the Jimmy Kimmel Show. So this is one of the shows we used to air late at night. And now we were covering Jimmy Kimmel, wanting to be the honorary mayor of Dildo, Newfoundland. And he sent his sidekick, Guillermo, to Dildo to do a bunch of cut-ins for the show, and we aired one of the cut-ins. I came off the back and I said, I've got to get me a hat like that. The show saw that, Jimmy Kimmel Show, and sent me this hat. And Guillermo signed it on the back. He says, Dear Brian, enjoy my hat. Love from Hollywood, Guillermo. So this is the actual hat that Guillermo wore in Dildo, Newfoundland, when he was doing all of his cut-ins for the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And this is one of my proudest possessions. I wonder why.
There it is. That deep voice, the laugh. It's legendary. I mean, he's legendary. That laugh itself could be somewhere in its own broadcasting wing of a Hall of Fame somewhere.
Yeah, and you've hit with something funny when he laughs like that. you know that's a good one.
And that's such an important part of Morning Live. We started this with Annette, and sometimes the stories are heavy. Sometimes it's, it's tough. It's hard news. It's that brevity. And we talked about, Tim Boland's Feel Good Time and what a great part of the show that is, because you don't want it to all be doom and gloom, because this business can be tough. The news can be bad. You got to be able to enjoy yourself. And Brian, obviously a huge part of that morning show, and that laugh, like I said, just iconic.
Yeah. And I think that's the key to the success of the morning show, is that, we do, and I say we in the, in the
collective
group effort.
sense.
Yeah, that was the word.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have that, because you're in their homes every morning, and people want to feel connected. And the chat that they all have, Tim, Annette, Brian, Simone, Emily, it's great. It's like you're an extra person at the table.
Now, Brian has been with the station a long time, and working on Morning Live with those early hours can definitely be a grind. And it seems he is as amazed as everyone that he can keep it going. Let's take a look and a listen.
I just do. I mean, the moment the alarm goes off, if it does go off, when I say that, I mean that I've done it for so many years, my body clock just wakes me up. Like this morning, I woke up at 2:45, knowing that the alarm was going to go off. The alarm, if it does go off, is that moment of hell. But once you get up and get going, it's okay. I did morning radio for so many years that I just got used to doing it. That I did other shifts in television, but then going back to the morning show has been relatively okay. I don't have a problem getting up. Actually, I enjoy getting up and doing my work early in the day, and then having the rest of the day to myself to do whatever. So I don't have a problem with it.
Now, I guess I'll get a taste of that. I've worked morning radio before, not long time, not long stretches like Brian, but I will get a taste this summer when I'm filling in for Tim.
Yeah, unless he books those days off because he doesn't want to work with you. No, that's not Brian.
Yeah.
But one of the key things, or one of the things I really enjoy about Brian, is talking music and sharing these arcane stories about old pop music and rock music and what it means and who did this. And we really do try to stump each other, and it's a lot of fun. And I get a lot of personal satisfaction when I play a song from the early 70s that is annoying, like, say, early 80s Undercover Angel. And he's like, I had to play that every day, and I laugh.
Let's move on a little bit. We often reference our directors, and they really are the unsung heroes of the station here at CHCH.
Yeah, they really are. I had a joke here, but they really are. They put up with a lot. They take a lot of the responsibility, even though we broadcast from the same set with the same lights, with the same technology, day after day after day after day. They got to be on their game, because so much can go wrong. And Laura Brody, Mike Corsten, there's Peeler, and I know once again I'm probably forgetting somebody else, but they are so crucial to the show, and they understand things that aren't in the handbook, and they get the nuances.
We're going to hear from one of them right now, Chantal Grillo, yet another Mohawk grad. We mentioned that. It seems they're everywhere here. And for people who may not know exactly what a director does, Chantal was pretty clear about what she does.
I tell them all what to do, right? Yeah. You see them sometimes with their earpiece, or sometimes they move their earpiece. That's me in their ear. I'm telling them when to talk, when to stop talking, how much time's left in commercial breaks, stuff like that.
You're even planning out individual shots with the cameras to make sure it all melds together.
Well, it's definitely changed now, right? Before I would tell the cameraman or woman to give me the shot. Now I control that camera with a joystick.
So that gives you more work to do.
More work, more control over the show, I guess. Yeah. And that role obviously has changed too, because the industry in general has just changed and adapted, and you need to keep up with the times. So I'm a director / switcher now. So not only before I would tell the switcher, what cameras I wanted, what stories we want to go to. Now I just do that all myself.
So it's become more automated, but it's also given you a little bit more work to do as well.
Yeah, a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more control of the show and what I want.
And they tell me, Louie, a real deep secret is that they're okay if the anchors race into the last minute and fumble with their earpieces and microphones. They're okay with it.
So my thing that directors don't, I was going to say hate, but don't like about me, I'm constantly talking. So, like, there's times where, like, can you stop talking so I can cue you? And then they're always in my ear being like, yeah, you're done. Thank you. Thank you. And I know PAs, too. We got Katie in the studio. She is the queen of thank you, which means get out. You know, that's the other part of it. The unsung heroes of the station, for sure.
Yeah, they really, really are. And I think you have to be a bit of a control freak, too.
As well as our employee, Chantel has had some of the most daunting shows to work at, including our migration here from downtown to Dundas. Here's Chantel on that.
Nicole and I we did 2 newscasts in Niagara Falls. We actually did the whole station. We were moving from Jackson Street, downtown Hamilton, to our new building where we are now in Innovation Drive, but they didn't want to go off air. So in between leaving Jackson and coming up here, we had to go somewhere. So we went to Niagara Falls in a hotel room, and with this crew, this amazing crew that we put together, and so many people behind the scenes.
We had scripts. That was it.
And we went out on like the balcony of the Marriott Hotel, and we broadcast live 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock news Saturday and Sunday. And so no one at home would ever know that we were moving stations.
Now, the amount of work and focus, like I came in, we had already moved here. Like I said, I've been here 2 years, so that we were already here. It's like getting to move in without doing any of the work. But all the people who obviously worked here during that transition, incredibly well done. And like Chantel said, you wouldn't even have noticed if you were, watching on TV.
And I think that's the hallmark of the crews here. It's we can't do that. It's how can we do that? Nobody ever says, oh, that can't be done. And even if they do, they don't really mean it, because they walk away for an hour and they come back with a plan. And you don't find that everywhere.
No. Again, we've said it a couple times, incredibly proud to work with the colleagues and the team that we have here. And speaking of our team, next up we got the newest full-time member of our news team, Simone Gavros, who is currently the overnight reporter for Morning Live.
And Louie, I do owe her a huge apology, because yesterday when I was listing some of the women that work in the newsroom, I left her out, and she was rightly correct to call me out on that.
Yeah.
And
sorry, Simone.
Yeah, so sorry, Simone.
We apologize. I should have stepped up as well and said, Simone Gavros, one of the incredible women that work here.
You are an integral part of the newsroom.
Yes, as is Laura Brody, who I'm not going to forget today.
And Amanda Destro.
And Joanna Petropoulos, yes. Anyone else we want to mention? Jasmine, I think, is editing today.
Christina's an editor. Alex
Pohl,
another one of our PAs.
Yeah.
Man, they are literally here by the ones and twos.
Well done. Despite being the newest member, Simone has a very clear understanding of the station and the community and how important the community is.
It's such a good feeling, especially when it shows that people are still watching the news. Like, people come up to us of all generations, and like I had like this little girl who's like 3 years old, and her mom was like, oh, she watches you every morning. I'm like, that's amazing. But it just goes like, people still want to watch the news, and they love watching CHCH because of the product that we always put forward. It's always reliable and trustworthy.
Again, another thread of that symbiotic relationship between what we do for the community, what the community does for us, and we really do appreciate and compliment each other as a news organization.
And compliment. We don't go out asking, hey, what do you think of the station? Are we doing a good job? People come out to us unprompted and say the nicest things. Not everyone,
okay,
but most folks. And it makes it better. and it also helps us focus. And sometimes you feel you're working into a vacuum, and it's nice to have that kind of feedback.
Simone obviously has a very unique role here, and when you look at other people, Nicole Martin had that role before her, Emily Taylor, that Manesa, that overnight, it's a difficult job, and here Simone takes us through a typical day for her.
I'm usually the first one who might be on scene if something's developing overnight. I'm usually the first one that heads there, and we know nothing. We're trying to gather all the information that I possibly can, talk to witnesses, get a hold of police, get a hold of the fire department, while also trying to meet your 6 deadlines that you have to do throughout the morning. It's exciting, it's fun, it makes, those 3 hours go by so fast. And then, you'll have like a fun Friday story where you're at the waterfront, or, you're petting dogs on, in Burlington. So it's always a good day.
Your stories can change. Like, I remember one day you had 4 different stories.
Yes, yeah, I was in, the truck, we were talking about snow, and then the snow melted, and then we were back in the studio talking about measles, and it just, one thing to the other, and you just have to roll with the punches. You just grab a script and research really quick, try to put something together in like a minute, and then you just get ready to present.
Her and Luke obviously do a fantastic job every morning, and something that she didn't mention there, but I will, is the travel time. We're here in Dundas, and some days it's tricky to get downtown, but she could be in Niagara, she could be at the border, she could be in Oakville, Mississauga. Like a huge part of the job is just the travel time,
and multiple times in the show. And, when you're producing that show, you want to hit every half hour. But sometimes the story that has come up doesn't allow for it. So you have to work with them to get there. And, you mentioned Luke Gudgeon, Live Eye Luke. He, like Dwayne, is a master of his craft.
Yeah. We saw a couple of his drone shots this morning. That's the new technology, but really, what an element that adds to Morning Live, those sunsets and just the views of Hamilton and Halton, Burlington that you don't normally get. Luke's up early, and it's got an eye for it, for sure.
He really does. I mean, using the drone, I think, has added made them getting up early a little bit better. But, being the producer is easy because we do it from the comfort of our station. And the reporters and Live Eye Luke, they're out there in the blistering heat and the frigid cold.
Okay, from one up-and-coming future broadcasting star to another. Next up, we got Eric Vienneau, and he talks about this, how he sources and crafts his story and the perils of social media.
Being a video journalist, you have to do it all by yourself. Coming in the morning to just talking about how it's just so different with social media. Like I'm not just like, calling up one person who can hopefully get me in contact with somebody. I'm sending 20 emails. I'm sending 20 Instagram messages, 20 X messages, 20 Facebook messages. Like you're just putting kind of like so that you can't fail, right? The news gathering is just so much more available to us, but obviously social media makes it so that we have to be a little bit more careful with how we're going about it and what we're grabbing off of it. So it's a lot more verification now.
Used to be only April Fools that you had to, double, triple check, quadruple check your sources. Now it's every day, right? We get a tweet, we get a call, usually takes 3 or 4 steps. And again, that goes back to Joanna, our fantastic assignment editor, who can confirm or double check. You got to be on the lookout for that fake news.
No, that's true. And that's why we have a very stringent vetting process here. It's not, it's not just here's my story, let's go. Somebody will say, the executive producer, news director will say, how can you say this? Well, because I have this backing piece of evidence here. Okay. And, we're not afraid to spike a story. I myself, Manesa worked on a story one day for hours, but there just wasn't enough there to do it right or even verify it. So, it was 6 hours of her day and gone in a heartbeat.
Eric mentioned that he is a VJ, which is a video journalist, and the job of a reporter or a VJ comes with some very unexpected challenges. And one of our favorites, Nicole Martin, shares one of her biggest obstacles that she has encountered in the field.
I think the funniest thing was when I was doing Morning Live. It just made me really appreciate a bathroom. Like, oh my gosh. Rural areas that we would go for a fire, whatever the situation, and this is when we had News Now, so they'd be like, okay, no, you gotta stay on, you gotta do a 10 o'clock hit, you're going all the way to the noon show. Like, okay, I've been out here since 6 a.m., I gotta go. I was doing a lot of coffee. This is probably TMI for the show, but I mean, like, those are the kind of funny memories that I have, is I could write a book on like the places I've gone.
Yeah.
So,
Not
it's
funny
not funny at the time, it's funny now. And Shoppers Drug Mart, shout out, has a nice portable little toilet that you can play with. For anyone else who's going to be Simone.
See, Simone, you'll have
They don't teach you that in journalism school.
They sure don't, but they probably should. And again, it's one of those things you don't think about, right? I mean, who would think? Well, they have to go to the bathroom, and they do. But that's the things that the people in the field have to do. It's something the producer has to balance. It's. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Nicole, just watching her, listening to her, I was lucky enough she was my weekend news anchor when I started, and she wasn't there long, of course, because after a few months of us working together, she had enough and created her own show. And that, of course, is Trending Now, which you can see weekdays, 7 p.m. right here on CHCH. It's a little different from our regular news coverage. And if you haven't seen Trending Now, I mean, who hasn't? But here's Nicole telling us what it's all about.
I think we were the very first show at CHCH to have a TikTok account. So we were doing our videos here in studio. We post all of our stories to TikTok, and that's really grown our audience online. Also YouTube as well. We have millions of people watching some of our videos, and we're really getting out there, not just locally, but nationally and internationally too.
And Louie, there are actually two reasons why that show is so good. And Nicole is one, but her producer, Laura Seven, who you've probably heard a few times here, they are extraordinary. The work that they execute on a daily basis is really the two of them with two editors and a reporter. It's unreal.
Yeah.
It doesn't get done everywhere.
Yeah. Obviously, I've filled in for Nicole on that show a couple of times. I've been a part. I am still a part of it. Every Friday, you can catch me with my little sports segment. And there's a podcast.
What?
A Trending Now podcast.
What? Who hosts that?
That would be me, Don. Come on. You should know that.
It's Friday.
You should know that. Yes, the Trending Now podcast is available wherever you found this podcast. Did you like that? That's my announcer voice. Next up, what do we got? We have Emily Taylor. She started here as a writer while still in school.
And I think it's important here to note that Annette and Nicole, they do so well because, like Emily, they started as writers, and they learned how to make a story succinct, how to make a story resonate, a strong lead to get everybody paying attention. And that, starting as a writer, is really reflected in how Emily does her job.
Yeah, it's skill so important in learning, how to take big international stories that you may think have nothing to do with Hamilton and making them hit home and getting people here to care about them. Emily, one of the best in the business, and here she talks about it on how to make those international big stories local.
It does impact people locally, right? I mean, the big ones right now, we have Israel and Hamas and war. We have Ukraine and Russia. That deeply impacts people in our community. We have people who have been living in Hamilton for generations or recently came over from these countries to Hamilton who have family members who are still in these areas that are trying to get them over here. If any way that we're able to connect with people actually going through this, both brings it to a local level, but it also makes people here who maybe aren't impacted understand it at that deeper level. It is that personal connection. It's not just there's some people at war off in the distance and I don't need to pay attention to it. It's my neighbor is going through this right now.
So important to never forget, that as much as stories matter, they matter more when our viewers can see themselves or their community reflected in what we tell them.
Exactly, and I think that's what we do better than anyone else. And it's just so important for people to understand. It's hard to understand war. It's hard to understand famine. But when you say, hey, the person next door to you is suffering, that helps you. Oh, I get it now. It's so important.
Yeah, something the internet can't do, right? Those aggregate websites that just grab stories. AI will never be able to get that that local human touch. We're about to hear from Manesa Dhanabalan. Manesa's been here for about 4 years. She also did a stint on Morning Live, and during our media panel, she talked about the importance of building on a legacy that's 70 years in the making.
It's the foundation that you guys all set up, right? That relationship with the community, because anyone, I know for a fact I'm not alone, anyone who walks up to us when we're in the community, they're like, I've been watching CHCH for years. And that's the one, and that is exactly why we're like, and the second they leave, we're so happy because they walked up to us, they were talking to us, they're talking about how they love what we're doing still and everything, and that is pressure for us. But it's also like very, like, thank you to all of you for actually making that foundation for starting off that relationship, and it's on us to sustain it, and it's a lot of pressure, but it's amazing because that love was already there, so we didn't have to start from scratch, and that trust was there, so it makes it all the more, it's a goal for us, it's something that we want to stay true to.
We've said it between you and I, we've heard it from people. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. We talked about it yesterday in the Legacy Show. So true, especially when you're building on a legacy of 70 years and then moving forward.
And it's amazing to me how our newer staff members get that. And they get the importance of it. They feel it, and it shapes how they work and how they tell their stories. It's amazing.
We started this program here talking about one of those bridge employees that can bring together the past and the present. So last but certainly not least is our friend Bubba O'Neill. And there is no more vocal cheerleader for all levels of sports in the region that we call home than Bubba O'Neill, something he himself is very proud of.
We have this joyous celebration of local sports in this area that I don't think is like any other area, at least in this province. Maybe in some of the western provinces they appreciate it as much as we do, but on all levels, whether it be women's sports, men's sports, amateur sports, and now professional sports in Hamilton, because there used to be just the Ticats and maybe the Cardinals, but now there's so much more. There's basketball, there's hockey, there's all genders. The McMaster sports has gotten even bigger than it once was. Fun to cover, but hard to cover in some ways too, in terms of time.
I can appreciate what he's saying there. Hard to cover in terms of time. Sometimes you feel like you miss sometimes you do miss things. There's so much happening, and I said this yesterday. Junior B, Junior A, Junior C, OFSA, right? There's so many high schools, there's so many divisions, there's so many teams that you want to talk about, and you're going to forget some, but it really is important for local teams to get to see themselves. I go back to a football game, Sasa football game we did last year. We are a part of the community. It all comes back to that word.
Yeah, and we all remember as kids getting our names mentioned on local radio, or if you're lucky enough on TV. It's a big, big deal. And again, the connection with the community is actually underlined by an encounter that Bubba had not too long ago.
All right, let's take a look.
I went to a hockey tournament on my own this past weekend in Welland. I could not have ever imagined having to speak, shake hands, say hello to as many people as I did. There was probably about 1,000 people in this arena for an under-18 championship. And it goes to show you the reach. This is Welland that I'm talking about on a Sunday afternoon. And people that had recognized me, people were wondering, oh, did you bring the cameras, right? And unfortunately, I had to tell them I was on a weekend. It's a weekend I was off. But for them to share my son's number 66, whatever the case is, keep an eye on him. He's really good. The excitement to see on people's faces when I walked in the building and sat down and enjoyed the game, people coming up to me, thanking me, thanking this station for still covering local sports. That kind of keeps you going, and it makes you say, people are listening, people are watching.
It's true. We hear that all the time. People coming up to, why didn't you cover this? That's how we know you're watching. When you tell us what we aren't covering, that's how I know we're watching. I was at church the other day. I don't go very often, I should say. Let me preface it with that. I went to, the number of people at church who would come up to me afterwards and, hey, we watch you on CHCH. Right. We call it Cha-Cha, though. We call it Cha-Cha. We watch you, and Chris Critelli came up. She's like, oh, are you Bob Butko's nephew? She's like, I always see her name, Bob Butko. And I think, yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's my uncle. And again, that's Niagara, that's St. Catharines, and Hamilton. It's all the same too.
And they get a little stocky. When I was, and I mean that in really a flattering,
in the most complimentary
way. I was at my daughter's soccer game, and we were at the concession stand, and this woman came up to me and she said, hey, are you producer Don from Morning Live? I'm not wearing CHCH gear. I'm not in a truck. There's nothing to identify me as CHCH, but somehow she made the connection, and it runs that deep.
Yeah, people approach us all the time. We love it. We love it. We do, especially if you say nice things. Especially if you say nice. If you have a mean thing to say, maybe keep that in your back pocket. But if you have some constructive criticism, I'm more willing to listen. But
sure,
if you come out and be nasty, I got no time for you.
Yeah.
It's been great sitting down with you this week. Obviously, you've worked very, very hard on getting all this stuff, and I've been very grateful to have you on the show, to have an outlet to get to share some of this stuff that might not otherwise see the light of day. Any final thoughts when it comes down to it? The 70th.
It sounds like a cliche, but this project has really made me fall in love with the station again. I bring Mitch Markowitz up. We have talked to him for years, but his latest interview, it's chock full of stuff we'd never heard before. And it's absolutely amazing. But I have to mention Keith Johnson. He's my camera operator, my editor. He's done a lot of research, digging up stuff. And it's a small thing that you may not notice, but with the exception of couch interviews, every single interview has a different background. And he refused to do one setup and just run people through. He wanted something new. Not everybody would do that, and not everybody would notice, but I think it needs to be called out.
Keith Johnson, again, just like Dwayne, one of the best in the business. Yep. Fortunate to get to work with him and alongside him, learn from him. But again, I think Dwayne's here, so you might actually hear some of the nice things if I start going on about nice things about him. Speaking of nice people, Don, thanks for being here. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah,
but,
neither do I.
I don't know what it is, but really do appreciate you coming on this week and sharing these memories and all the hard work. I know, I appreciate it. I know everybody here appreciates the work you put in to doing this 70th. I know you don't want a lot of praise, but you definitely deserve some. And well done, man. I really do appreciate it.
My therapist says I should accept and say thank you. So that's what I'm going to do. And I have really enjoyed these 3 days on the podcast.
You're welcome. You said thank you. That's why I said you're welcome. You said that was in my head. I was going to say thank you. Thank you to Don for being a part of this. Thank you to Laura Brody. Thank you to Katie Sawatsky as well. You guys have done a great job. Thank you for being a part of this. And thank you for listening. We really do appreciate it. We could not do the show without your support. And hey, while you're here, why don't you like and subscribe? Maybe even leave a comment if it's, again, something nice or a constructive criticism. I ain't got no time for your hate, so don't leave that at home. But like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast so you never miss an episode, or you go to chch.com/podcast. For more, one more time, thank you for being with us today and all week. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Bucko. Have a great day.